What was your biggest failure that?
So we built 5 different apps last year.
Mark Zuckerberg, if he likes your idea, could take 100,000 engineers and build it in a week.
Living and working a job that I don't want to be at is much more painful than even any lows in entrepreneurship.
Today on UNinvested, I'll be speaking with Alexandra Debow, an NYU dropout, a Thiel Fellow, a 2-year program that gives young entrepreneurs $100,000 to drop out and build something cool, and the founder of Swsh, a social photo sharing app that has raised almost $2 million to deepen the connections you have with friends. As always at UNinvested, we dive into the truth behind how young entrepreneurs, VCs, and tech innovators make it. What is driving you to be an entrepreneur? The failure rate of entrepreneurship is 95 to 99%.
I think entrepreneurship comes from this idea that you want to change the world and that you're okay with the risk that comes with it. Inherently, there's so many things that are unpredictable in the world, but taking the calculated risk that you want to do something that's going to change the world and the upside, understand that the downside's really not that bad and there's so many ways you can restart and be resilient through that is something that drives me to do entrepreneurship.
And it seems like you've been an entrepreneur for a while. I saw a video of you when you were 18 years old pitching a Live One, I think was the startup. So what kind of got you into entrepreneurship, I guess, and what is that mindset?
Yeah, I think it's for sure a function of the people that I was around. Like I was around people who like to take risks, who was able to put themselves out of their comfort zone and things like that. But inherently, it's something that I really did find community around. I love being around people who were able to connect, people who were able to learn and all of that. And at the end of the day, that was something that I felt was the key driving factor to want me to pursue something myself.
What would be your advice to, people our age in their early 20s that want to go into entrepreneurship? And it kind of seems almost like a fantasy job when you're so young. You hear all the time, like, do your 2 years in corporate America, build up a skill set, but you dropped out and did it.
Yeah, I think there's no perfect way to do so. And the idea that you have to figure out what's best for you at different stages in your life. Some people do it much younger than me. Some people do it much older than me. The idea is like you want to be ready when you feel like you're comfortable to take a risk. And there's no better way to take a risk. Like honestly, the moment you want to do it is probably the best way to do it. And the earliest you can sort of destigmatize this idea of failure, the better. So just say start as early as possible. Have those like smaller wins, smaller wins, smaller losses. And that can continue to accrete over time. So
you're saying you just need to jump into failure. I guess what was your biggest failure that when it came to entrepreneurship?
I feel like everything, like just everything is a failure until like something huge happens. Like I think failure is just like a way of thinking about like learning. And like honestly, I just learn every single day. Anytime something doesn't work, it just becomes a learning. It's sort of like winning or learning. That's the way I think about it, not like winning or failing. Failure is, of course, what learning is, and learning can become failures. But with, I think, enough failures or enough learnings, inherently a win can come out of that. So just working on that right now.
How many ideas did you have before you landed on Swsh? How many of those failed? Did a Live One fail in your mindset?
Yeah, I built so many things. Well, everything taught something. So, for example, we had a women entrepreneurship podcast that I started with my co-founder that was able to grow not to like a venture scalable business, but it was able to something that we could start ourselves. Started this women entrepreneurship conference. That was really, really fun too. Like everything taught us something, but at the end of the day, like it was the thing that you wanted to build and really build to $1 billion business. That's the thing that I wanted to invest in.
And something we talked about earlier is there's so much upside entrepreneurship, but how do you weigh that against the trade-off of building a startup versus dropping out of school? And I'm not just talking about, being at a great school like NYU, having great classes, but also the social elements you might miss of being in college.
Yeah, I would say in terms of social element, I really feel like I haven't missed much just because I had a really unique college experience. First going to school at NYU in Shanghai, and then at NYU in Paris, and then at NYU in New York, living in a bunch of different places, meeting people in the different religious communities I'm part of, cultural communities I'm part of, tech communities, interest groups, things like that. Like I love life and I love meeting people, and we're building a social app, so it works well. But for sure, there is still a trade-off. I just felt like I didn't resonate with like kind of the more traditional Greek life schools anyways, or the way that works. So I was like, well, I'm not searching for anything, so I don't feel like I'm kind of losing anything. I feel like I'm just gaining.
So why do you think people our age go towards that, like I said, like the safer route of getting a corporate job? Because, you can be very successful going that route rather than entrepreneurial route.
Yeah, absolutely. I, at the end of the day, find a way to connect with people to be the most important thing. And I want to do so in a way that was scaled and outside the comfort zone. Dropping out of school was a decision I made because I wanted to be able to build something that I couldn't do in school. Of course, in the day, there's always that idea that like, yeah, when I first was like, I can always go back. What's the worst case scenario? But I did so as a way as a catapult, less of like, kind of like, let's go behind. It was like, how do I get ahead?
How do you get ahead in terms of what?
Like what I want to do. Like when I graduated, I pretty much wanted to do what I was just going to do already, but I knew that I would have a competitive edge starting now. So that's really why I did that.
And at what point do you know you're on to something? I heard like in the past, you talked about how you have to tune out people calling you crazy or such.
Yeah, for sure. And like that kind of always is the case. And that's like so fine to be like that. I think if you believe and you sort of just have this first principles belief that like you believe that you can do something, you believe that like you're building it for yourself, like that will always come through.
Was there like a moment in terms of traction, like specifically when it comes to like users or feedback you were getting when you were like, this is not just a good idea in my head, this is actually proof points, this is a good idea?
Yeah, I would say at least for right now, the product that we're working on, like seeing people use it again and again, can come back week after week, getting messages like saying how people love it, they want to use it all year, they use it all semester, they want to continue to use it forever, how can I share with their friends, like messages like that. So there's like qualitative science, there's also quantitative science, so those both work together.
And then how did you come upon your current idea? Because I was looking, like it seemed like a year ago it was a social app that allowed people to like ask questions about each other, and now it's like a social photo sharing app. What was kind of the transition there?
Yeah, for sure. So we built 5 different apps last year. None that had PMF, but all that taught us a bunch. And that's like this idea of like failure and learning. So we've learned a bunch from all these apps that led us to where we are today. But at the end of the day, like, again, we just want to build something that like is something that solves our own problem. And I think that's the best person to build towards. But all those things before were like things that we thought in the moment we wanted, but not actually, because we just wouldn't use it ourselves. But then it all sort of conveyed to what we have right now.
A lot of times I've had past episodes where people talk about specifically pivoting, moving from idea to idea. Did you go into that mindset that the first idea wasn't going to work? Or was your mindset
yeah. We came in thinking it was going to work. We're going to force it into existence. At the end of the day, it's sort of like if you know it, if you don't, and like if you don't love your own product, like, and you're building for yourself, then like your own self won't love it. And I think in the past, like we're building products that like did not make sense in a scaled version, or really ones that we've been used ourselves. And it's really, really difficult to kind of like find the balance between like fact, like we want to build something, but also we want to build something for ourselves, but also what do we want? So sort of going through those almost like cycles, because it's almost like a like hazing in consumer social where you have to build a bunch of stuff that doesn't work.
What is your mindset on that when you're going, you're essentially failing 5 times? You said you built 5 products, so that's considered moving on 5 times. How do you really keep yourself going? Is it because you're just like so determined to be an entrepreneur and to build something, or is it so determined to solve the problem that you're working on? And you could talk about the problem as well.
Yeah, so it's more so the problem, which is this idea of strengthening the connections of people that really mattered to you. Like we knew there was something out there we wanted to solve. We know this feeling that we felt wasn't being met, and we wanted to build something that really, really helped emphasize that. And we just like really fell in love with the problem, and we knew that there was going to be a solution that was going to come with it. Like we didn't know what the solution was going to look like, and continue trying to find the best solution in the world. But like right now, the problem is so clear, which is like there was a lack of solutions for this problem, which was like strengthening connections. There wasn't like a good place to get started there, and we knew that we were the right people to solve it.
Why were you the right people to solve it?
So yeah, we grew up around the world where people moved around all the time. So we kind of had that perspective where like we became really good at keeping contact with people, specifically from different cultures, different backgrounds, different communication styles. We're also like the moms of the friend group. Like we're super social. We love hosting events. We love like parties, things like that. And sort of that combination along with like relentless script and like having a track record of like building stuff and like bootstrapping kind of put us in a position where we felt like we were really great people to solve this problem.
So it seems like you've gotten that question before, because it's obviously like when you're raising venture capital, one of the biggest questions is, why are you the right people to solve it? But I guess, how did you kind of did you always have that thought process? Or was it like you were saying, like you're the mom, the friend groups, you've been all over? Or did it take time to really develop that story?
Yeah, it's like not a story, but it's also like true. Like that is who I am. Like if I introduce you myself in a party, like I say like, yeah, I grew up in Hong Kong and I'm super social, like that's just who I am. Like there's this idea of like founder market fit. Like I am exactly I embody Swsh. I love bringing people together. I love going to parties. I love taking photos. I love going on trips. I love events. Like I love it. Like it's who I am. So like it's super easy to just come in and work on something I care about and who I am every day.
What's the balance, tell me, between, it seems you're very, very passionate about the problem you're solving, but also you're very, very passionate about entrepreneurship. Which one kind of came first?
I would say I love people. Like entrepreneurship is probably the best. It's a way of solving this problem, but I also always like love doing stuff outside the comfort zone and trying different things. So it was sort of like, it kind of was always like the things like seeing to my parents that I always felt to be quite unique and quite resonant around me.
In your case, like you said, you're very social. A lot of your, peers are probably entrepreneurs as well, but also in college. So how do you kind of stay in your own zone, right? Like grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. So how do you kind of just focus on your own start and tune out everything else?
I love the problem we're solving more than anyone else. I love my team more than anyone else. So it's easy to be like, grass always greener, but like I love it, and like being relentlessly focused on the problem of PMF has just been the most important thing to come back to at the end of the day. Like whenever you think overwhelmed, you're like, oh my God, there's all these things going on. It's like, what's the most important thing? What really matters? Okay, cool. Let's focus on that.
And how long did it kind of like you zeroed in on like finding product market fit? So that's your number one focus, essentially. That's how you tune out everything else.
Yes, absolutely.
And is that because you want to find a product market fit is finding a solution to the problem you're solving or building a successful company?
It's sort of one and the same. Like it's a successful company comes to fruition in some ways as the success of like the company, the problem you're solving, all that sort of stuff.
And then what happens when you see, your friend, like if you have other entrepreneurs and they hit PMF first, or if they product market fit, basically like finding success in their product, or they've raised more funding than you, how do you kind of not compare, be like, this is a separate problem, and just keep hope that you're going to get to the finish line, whatever you determine that is?
I literally don't care about anyone. I don't care. I hope everyone wins. Like literally, I don't care. I don't care at all. I like hope, I know everyone can win in their own way. Like that's like so remotely untouched from like my brain.
So what would you say is unique about the way you carry yourself as a young entrepreneur compared to others that are young entrepreneurs and just entrepreneurs themselves?
Yeah, like I think everyone can win. I think that's it. Like I don't gatekeep. I don't like try to like share information. Like I'm like, yeah, intro to this person, like share this information. Like we can all win. It's all about who we all have the same resources. To gatekeep resources is such a cheap move. Like execution is all about it. So like intro to someone, help give advice, whatever it is. So yeah, I just like always choose to be kind and go the extra mile in kindness, because I think kindness and lots of like kindness aggregate over time.
And in a space like social media, which is very, very cutthroat, very, very dense with a lot of startups, how are you kind of standing out and competing? Mark Zuckerberg, if he likes your idea, could take 100,000 engineers and probably build it in a week.
Yeah, I think we're coming at it from a couple of different angles. One is like we're just being very, very lean and tight. We're doing things that are super focused. We're not trying to build something for a huge audience right now. We're scaling quite like intentionally. And then number two, we're also coming from like utility point of view. Like we're not a social media. We're like, oh, we're a way that you can get your photo albums and like make that system super simple. It's not like making friends, whatever. It's like, no, what's the utility? How can you come in from that point of view? And the socials on top of it.
The utility for you is like the photo sharing, right? But how do you kind of differentiate when there's already, features out there? I can go on my iPhone, I can create a shared album. It might not be the best, but it does work. So what is your pitch to people there?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. Like number one, across like Apple and Google, they're building for an audience age 5 to 85. So because of that, they're not able to like focus super, super heavily on one key demographic and do things that we can do that are much more spiky. So for example, yeah, we filter for photos of you. We're able to like do tagging that connects like your Instagram and Snapchat and make it very social. It's cross-platform, so you're able to create a link and generate that, be able to use it on web, mobile, iPhone, app, whatever. Also able to do really like kind of snarky things. Like for example, able to use AI filter to filter out photos of like alcohol and stuff for like frats and things like that. So there's a lot of like fun things that we're going to be building over time that just like clearly make the experience so much better.
Saying you are the user demographic, do you think young entrepreneurs should be going after people with their own age?
Well, it depends on the person, but I think there's something very cool about being young and social and like really taking that time to build something in the social space then. Like it's a little bit weirder to build something in the social space when you're like 45, maybe like more settled down. But when you're like 20, whatever, and you like just want to build stuff, like it's really cool to do so.
Would there be any other space you think as that young entrepreneur should go after that might be weird for someone a little bit older to go after outside of social?
Not really on it. Maybe like tools for college students. Maybe that's like what's unique to you. What are the things that like opportunity cost for them?
In terms of monetization, when you're thinking about building a startup, especially catered towards like college-age kids. Everyone knows college-age kids are not spending money on really anything. So what is your thought when you're building a startup in that space?
Yeah, so colleges are where we're starting. It's not where we're ending. So we're using it as a really great testing ground, but it's not where we see kind of the ultimate path for monetization.
So where do you see yourself moving towards?
In terms of monetization?
Yeah, in terms of monetization audience. Earlier you said you're not building a tool that's 0 to 85 like Apple or Google is. So where do you kind of naturally progress?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. One, like for like creators, like there's people who are like the moms, that friend group at multiple different stages of their life. May that be in college with frat sororities, like organizers of like concerts, music festivals, like community leaders, things like that. They are the ones who like organize and pay for a subscription like this. So like that's one angle. Another angle is of course a consumer angle. So it's like the more like disco girly who pays for subscription. And there's like enterprise stuff too.
As you're a founder and you're also could be a user of your product, how do you weigh features or wants of, a user that you've talked to versus your own opinions? Because you're at the end of the day, you're a user of your product, and maybe you might have a conflicting view of that's a dumb feature or I don't think that's needed.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think again, like I want to be very like first principles and like trust myself. We do get a lot of product feedback, but like we're still on a stage, like we're building for ourselves. If I don't like it, like we won't build it. We have a pretty good sense of being able to like differentiate between a sort of like monkey brain and like product brain. So that's sort of what we go back and forth towards.
So what do you mean by monkey brain versus product brain?
Monkey brain sort of just like first principles, like I'm like drunk 2 a.m, like how am I going to pay for the product versus like very intentional, like how does product behave, what's the user behavior, then like what's the onboarding, things like that.
Do you have any examples of features people have wanted where you're just like, this is monkey brain and not product brain?
The whole issue is like people will suggest solutions, not problems, and like that's unhelpful. You want to hear what the user's problems are, not the solutions, because like people don't know what they want, they know what they just don't like. So like the most famous example of this is like with Henry Ford. Like in the early 1900s, people were like, oh, if I wish like there was faster horses, no one would have been like invent a car. They're just like, I want faster horses. The problem, they were like, it's too slow, until Henry Ford was like, wait, let's build cars. So the idea is like you want to hear what the problem, it's not what the solution is.
That's a really good analogy. And something else, you kind of just talked about Henry Ford, but what are other examples or people you look up to that are your age, young entrepreneurs that have kind of made it?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great people around us. There's some good people in the Thiel Fellowship that I really respect and have really done a great job. Same with the Z Fellows. I think there's some really, really wonderful people in New York City as well who've just like done a really great job of like balancing execution of the company with like building and being very, very quick and but being very, very intentional and just building very beautiful products too.
Do you have any examples of people for our listeners that are also young entrepreneurs that, you know, might need some role models, right, in their life?
Nick and Mark from Hypercard are really great. You mentioned Avante and Eli from Posh. They're awesome. Yeah, I mean, those are some great ones.
Now, what are some differences between a young entrepreneur and an older entrepreneur that might have more experience?
Yeah, I feel like there's something that can be said to a young person who's like a little bit more naive and like doesn't know what they're getting themselves into. So like they don't like kind of know what's happening. So they can kind of like take risks. But then there's also like a lot of wisdom and experience that comes with someone who's a little bit older.
And as someone that's a successful young entrepreneur, what is your number one piece of success or number one piece of advice you wish you knew before you got into this whole thing with Swsh?
I have not hit any point of success yet. So I'm going to give advice to myself that I should take, which is just like be patient. Like things are not going to happen overnight. It's going to feel like things happen overnight in 1 week. And some days are going to feel like years and some years are going to feel like days. And just being patient with the process and like doing the thing day out is what's going to help move the needle forward.
Yeah, everyone tries to get hockey stick growth, but in reality, hockey stick growth is not a thing. So how do you get yourself through it? What are some tactical things someone can do to remind themselves or really push them through the parts that are the best of entrepreneurship?
I would say surround yourself with people that really inspire you and people that like you can go to in moments of like lows, but also moments of highs. And then like fall in love with the problem you're solving as well, because then that's something that you can come back to even during your hard days.
And then how do you convince people when you're struggling, especially, that what you're doing is what's best for you, right? You shouldn't go take a job. You should continue on this extremely risky path of entrepreneurship, and specifically during the low moment.
Yeah, like no one knows it better than you. And like thinking about like you could be happy at any part of your life. You also be sad. Like you're gonna have issues no matter, the grass is always greener. Like you can always have issues. If you can't be happy now, who's to say like you're gonna be happy there? Like it's like the human condition to always kind of look for things and kind of deal with highs and lows. So I realized like this is the best high for me. And like of course I'm gonna have lows in my natural life, but I would do so anywhere. And the pain of living and working a job that I don't want to be at is much more painful than even any lows in entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I can definitely feel that. That's an interesting thought process. Now, moving back to your co-founders, you haven't really mentioned them. How do you lean on them, I guess?
Yeah, they're the people that I lean on. Yeah, that's who I was referencing.
Is there one person that's always pushing, the high ground, or is it like different moments, someone's pushing everyone else up?
Yeah, I would say like we're a good balance. Like as co-founders, it's really great to have that. We all complement each other quite well. We've known each other for a while, so it's really nice to have that kind of that friend, co-founder, trust environment.
I was reading one of your co-founders you met in high school, another one you met in college. So how do those dynamics play? Do you think it's essential, especially for young entrepreneurs, to have co-founders that are friends baseline? You see a lot of times, sometimes co-founders, they just meet because they both want to build. But it seems when I talk to young entrepreneurs, being co-founders started as friends first.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's not crucial, but it definitely does help. So that's always really helpful to play along with.
Why do you think it's not crucial?
Because like I have friends who've also just met randomly and like you just fall in love with the mission, the passion, what you're building on, and that kind of just works too. But there's also instances where people have known each other for a very, very long time and like they're not good co-founders.
And I want to go back to this point where you feel very, very tied to the mission, very, very tied to being an entrepreneur. And it just seems like you're saying you just got to keep going, you just got to keep going. It's almost like you're telling yourself when you're telling me to keep going. Is that intentional? You're trying to tell yourself that, basically?
No, because I don't find it painful. Like literally, like I enjoy my life every day. I like feel like I'm like literally every day. If I died today, I'd be so happy. Like every day is the best day. Like honestly, I feel so grateful. So I'm like, oh, so I'm going through this shit. Like it's not to quote Miley Cyrus, but it's about the climb. And if you're not enjoying the process, like what the hell's the point?
And is all of building the startup you're saying?
Totally. If you're not enjoying it, like why are you doing it?
You were talking about resources, and do you think if you hadn't done accelerators, incubators, like the Thiel Fellowship you got into or Z Fellows, you would be at where you're at today? What kind of aspect did that have, having mentors in your life, especially as a young entrepreneur?
Mentors are great. Like it's really, really important to be around people who you are inspired by and you can look up to. That goes back to like mimetic design and all these sorts of things. But having people who resonate with what you're doing and people to look up to, given like everything that's going on, I think is super, super important.
How do people find the right mentors?
It's hard. Yeah, I would say like I'm big on like cold call reach out. Like that is kind of my huge brand. All I do is like, I love so many people I meet in the world are just from like random DMs. So I would say just like, definitely do that. But everyone has their style.
So cold calls naturally, they have like a 1%, 3% response rate a lot of times. Do you have any tips for people that want to cold call? From what I've heard.
Keep doing it. Just law of large numbers wins.
How do you reach out?
Twitter, Instagram, email, like do something funny. Don't sound like a bot. Don't make it sound like a copy paste message. Like message if they're your friend and you've already been messaging with them for a while.
So be funny, you're saying?
Always be funny. Funny always wins.
Do you use the same joke or is there something new?
No, it's like if someone's talking, I'm like, oh my god, fellow Hong Konger or something like that. Or like it's not always as funny, just like very casual.
One of my last questions here is, if you could change anything in your path up to now, what would it be?
Nothing. Everything happens for a reason. I believe that. I
love telling myself that as well. So my very last question is, has there been any routine that you've kept throughout the years?
Yeah, I exercise every day, morning. Yeah, actually this morning I was running with a blog today. I exercise every morning, eat healthy eating, good sleep. Just the boring stuff, but it works.
Well, with that, I'm Sahil.
I'm Ellie.
And this has been UNinvested. Thank you. This is a personal video. Any views or opinions represented in this video are personal and do not represent those of people, institutions, or organizations we may or may not be associated with in a professional or personal capacity. The views expressed are for entertainment purposes only and not to be misinterpreted as actionable investment advice.